Alright, hey guys, how's it going? We're back with some more Steven Revisi-Verse. I've been putting this one off because I'm in another one of those moods where I don't actually want to look at my own content right now. But I do want to talk about the theories that we're going to be talking about today. Two of them, less my videos and more just the general concept behind them. But two of them I'm actually genuinely excited to revisit, because I do know that in some way or another I was correct, but I'm not entirely sure what I was correct about. And you know me, I like to know exactly what I got right and what I didn't, so that I can dismiss the stuff I didn't get right and play up the stuff I did. I know what I'm about. But those theories are... where are they? What did Peridot mean by harvest? Domains of the diamonds. The future of Jasper, and Steven's astral projection. This is from my era of just kind of calling anything a theory. I should have done more discussion videos, is my point. But that's fine. It's alright. And the two that I'm just going to use as jumping off points are what did Peridot mean by harvest and the future of Jasper. And I guess I might as well start with those, because this is going to be a little bit of a discussion here. My main issue with the show later on in its run, and I understand that part of this is because Cartoon Network was really hard on the production of the show, and they just, reportedly at least, or at least they've implied, I don't think they've ever actually said it outright, but they've implied very heavily that they just weren't able to do everything that they had wanted to do with the show. I gotta turn my other lights on. There we go. You guys can't even see them. You guys can't even see them in this video. Don't know why it matters, but whatever. Because, like, one of the greatest things about Steven Universe, especially early on, where there was still some more mystery behind everything, was that it had really strong lore. And that is technically true of the whole show, even as the art style started to change and evolve, and the homeworld stuff, let's use the homeworld stuff specifically as an example, started to look a little different than it had at the beginning. Like, there are definitely similarities between, like, the statue gems on homeworld and the statues back on Earth in some of the homeworld installations, even though assumedly they're supposed to be roughly equivalent things, right? If you see a weird statue with seemingly too many arms in a moon spire, and you see a weird statue with seemingly too many arms in, like, the throne room of the diamonds, they say kind of the same thing to you. That these are both places that were used for cultural gatherings, even if they have some other function. And in fact, I'm quite convinced that the statue gems that we see at the party in the Diamond Throne Room are either the same thing as those decaying statues at the Moonspire, or else a newer version of them that actually uses living gems, assuming that those weren't at one point living gems. And so seeing those kind of disfigured statues at that party that the diamonds threw has convinced me all over again that gem locations on Earth were used for, like, cultural stuff. That it wasn't just all function. That there was a purpose for the aesthetic aside from just decorating a functional tool. And if I remember correctly what's in one of the videos we're going to be talking about today, that's actually a thing we're going to talk about a little bit today. But one of the things that always frustrated me about that was that fans, even young fans, like some people say, it's only the older fans that pick the show apart, but even young fans were talking about it. How stuff like mentioning harvest, Peridot mentioning, "Are you going to harvest me?" or whatever the exact quote was. They were hinting at things. And I don't know if this is specifically what I say in my video on harvest. I may have formed this thought after that video came out. What are you gonna do? This last 3 years has felt like 600 years. A lot has happened. I have forgotten a lot of things. I apologize. But at this point in my life, my running headcanon is that Peridot, someone who was aware of the cluster experiments, meant harvest in the context of crushing her and using her as part of a big amalgam. Something that you would need a lot of gems to do if you were making a relatively large one, and would explain why those other bubbles with gems in them were floating around in the burning room. Because remember, seeing those other gems floating around in the burning room when she was freed from her bubble was the catalyst in her mentioning Harvest. And now we know that at the very least, the diamonds out of Homeworld Gems knew how to bubble stuff. It makes sense that working for Yellow Diamond, the Diamond who was primarily behind the cluster experiments, Peridot would have seen or heard about, or at least known of, a big room full of bubbled crystal gems, captive crystal gems, or just gem failures in general that Yellow Diamond intended to put into those experiments. But we're never actually directly told. And that wouldn't be such an issue. It wouldn't be a problem, except that it was dropped into a line of dialogue the same way that so many other hints about stuff were dropped into dialogue earlier on in the show. And it makes me wonder if there was supposed to be more revealed about that. And they just didn't have time to reveal it. Because as much as I think the final arc of the show did work for what it was, you definitely feel like there was supposed to be more there. That it was rushed considerably. And Future felt much the same way. Like, straight up, I don't feel like there was any point in like 5 of the Steven Universe Future episodes, unless there was more planned for the characters in them than what we got. Arguably, right? Like, it's subjective. You guys might get more mileage from those episodes, but like, what was it called? Bluebird or whatever? I don't know why that episode was there. Unless the stuff in it was intended to be followed up on and they just never got the chance to do it. It feels like it's missing. Just like follow-up on Harvest and other such lore bits that were just dropped in dialogue like they were supposed to mean something and never did. And like Jasper. And that's what I want to talk about here too, is that's the other thing I want to talk about here too. They needed to do more with Jasper. She was such an interesting character. She was the main villain of the show for a little while. You remember that? She was the literal main villain of the show for a while. And looking at her personality type and her experiences, there needed to be a whole arc. Maybe just kind of like offhanded stuff that implies progression in the background and we just see the main milestones in it. But there needed to be a whole arc of her getting redeemed. She needed a redemption arc. And like it's implied at the end that she's going to get one because of the stuff that they did admittedly use her very well for going into Steven's final arc in the show. But there needed to be more of Jasper. We hardly got anything of Lapis. It was expected that they were holding off giving us more stuff of Lapis once she became a recurring character because she had that toxic relationship with Jasper and we were going to get both of them at the same time. And develop that and discuss that. And it never happened. And I did a whole video theorizing that Jasper was going to play some part in the show, even if my specific theories on what part she was going to play were wrong, that she was going to become a relatively major character. And again, Future even set it up like that was going to be a thing, like coming back and interacting with and trying to normalize Jasper to Earth, acclimate Jasper to Earth is the word I was looking for, was going to be a subplot of Future, and that it was going to be a way that the show showed us Steven working through his problems by doing things, which is a thing that he always did in the original show. And then it just never happened until the very, very end, and even then, she was basically fridged for Steven's development, and any development that she gets after that is just implied by the fact that now she sees him as her proper diamond and is more willing to interact with people if he says so. And it's so bad. Like, I've said this before, I still think the show is overall very good. I think it does a really good job with what it has. And it clearly didn't have everything that it wanted to have to work with. That's a problem. But still, some things about the show are bad. And the way it didn't use Jasper to anything resembling her full potential is one of the bad things about this show. And it has reminded me of things like how we didn't see much of Peridot and Lapis after they became recurring characters, when we reasonably should have. There should have been more Lapis stuff, because Lapis literally almost destroyed the Earth. Like taking the Earth's oceans up into space could have destroyed the Earth. That's a thing. And the whole thing with Malachite was an issue, and they just never did anything with it. And reading through the Steven Universe ongoing comics lately for that review series, which if you guys haven't been following my reviews of that because they aren't episodes of the show, you definitely should be. And you should be reading them too. They're very good. I'm not sure where to find them. There's free places online, but I'm not sure where to find them without pirating them, technically. But they're very good. You should check them out. But revisiting those, not even revisiting those, but reading those, God, I'm throwing this together mostly off the top of my head in case you couldn't tell. Reading those, it feels like going back to the show, to a version of the show where they actually had the time to slow down and tell like different kinds of interesting stories with their secondary and recurring characters. And these stories, they feel like with just a little bit of punching up and maybe some slight additional time filler, could be episodes of the show. And it has started to show me some of the areas where I feel the show had deficiencies that I had kind of dismissed before. It's been a very interesting experience, and I probably, once I get further into this series, assuming that it continues to be as consistently good as it is, this Steven Universe ongoing comic series, I'll probably do a video on that. But at the same time, I understand why we kept getting the same kinds of Townie episodes, for example, because they had those backgrounds done. And backgrounds take time. Creating new backgrounds for new locations takes time. Adding things to your backgrounds, changing them, it takes time. It takes money, it takes resources. And the way Cartoon Network treated the show, it just wasn't always viable to do that stuff. And it's such a bummer. It makes me wonder what Steven Universe would be like if we got to see, not literally Rebecca Sugar's ultimate ideal version, because I feel like creators need some restrictions put on them for things to truly be great. But the version of what Steven Universe would have been if it had been on a network that actually cared about it consistently through its entire run. If that makes sense. We're going to look at these other two videos now. And because I really don't want to watch my stuff today, we're probably going to watch them at like 1.25 speed or something just to get through a little faster. Because I'm being a big old baby today. First, let's talk about Domains of the Diamonds, which is a pretty popular one. There it is. In which I talk about what I think the responsibilities of each of the diamonds were. In case you couldn't tell from the name.
And yeah, I know the thumbnail only shows 3 of the 4 diamonds, but this video will be discussing all 4. There just doesn't happen to be an image of pink diamond yet for me to use.
Tells you how old this video is. Like, I definitely agree with some of the stuff I was saying there. There's not a ton of evidence for this stuff, but there is enough to start to speculate on what the diamonds could do. Like, what they were expected to do, I guess is a better way to put it. And even though we don't really learn much more about their individual responsibilities, we learn that Yellow Diamond is the army, right? She's the military. We do learn that, and I did speculate that in this video, but we never really learn, and White Diamond's above them, obviously, but we never really learn what Blue's responsibilities were. Though I do still think, and again, if I'm remembering what exactly I put in this video, I'm going to talk about that a little bit. But I do think there's enough evidence here to still speculate what her responsibilities were. It's just we never really got confirmation of it. And it would have been nice to, even if offhand in dialogue, right?
We've even seen what White Diamond looks like, but all we've ever seen of Pink Diamond is her ankles and a little bit of what looks like crystal growing up from the ground around her feet.
Now, was that supposed to be quartz crystal? Did anybody ever talk about that? I'm not sure what quartz crystal looks like until it's processed, like before it's processed. Was that supposed to be a hint that she was rose quartz? Or am I reading too much into things again?
Still, I think we know more about her than you might think. enough to surmise the bare bones of the role that her and her followers played.
Oh, a less true statement has never been made by anybody. Like, we knew more about her than we realized, but not for the reasons I thought. And man, as much as again, these are thoughts that can coexist, right? I've said this before. As much as I think they did a good job with the pink diamond reveal and how they used it, I still think it was a mistake to make them the same person.
As a gem associated with Pink Diamond, Rose's motivations, before the rebellion at least, would have been in line with Pink Diamond's motivations. So what do we know about Rose's motivations that could tell us something about Pink Diamond?
I mean, technically speaking, I was on the right track. I just didn't want to believe that. I didn't want to believe they were the same person because I thought it was stupid. That's really what it comes down to.
Whether Rose is somehow Pink Diamond herself or just a trusted quartz in Pink Diamond's ranks, none of that really matters, because it doesn't really change anything that we can deduce about Pink Diamond thanks to Rose.
Again, I am technically correct, but you know.
While there are many gem ruins all across the world, the only site that we've seen which has actually damaged the planet is the kindergarten. If Rose feels personally responsible for the damage to Earth, and it is the kindergartens which have damaged the Earth and not much else, this tells us that Rose had something to do with the establishment of kindergartens on Earth. And this is what I was talking about before.
And so I use this to speculate that Pink Diamond was somehow responsible for the seeding of gems. But really she just feels, and this should have been obvious, but again, I was trying to avoid the idea that Rose and Pink Diamond were the same person because I didn't like it. If I had just paid attention though, while, yeah, obviously a quartz emerging from the ground at the kindergarten who then came to love the Earth would feel bad about the kindergarten. Like, that's Amethyst, that's part of Amethyst's arc, right? The only reason a gem would seem to feel personally responsible for the damage that the kindergarten did is if they're the gem who ordered it. And that's just more evidence that she was Pink Diamond. So again, technically, I brought up an important point. Technically, I was correct that she was in some way responsible for seeding the kindergarten. I just had the context wrong. And we now know that Pink Diamond was new to this, and that all the diamonds together would contribute materials to seeding gems, and just whichever diamond showed up and got to run the moon base, got to run the kindergartens too. Maybe eventually, because of how motherly she was, if she was given more responsibilities, Rose would have eventually fallen into this role, right? And kind of, that kind of would have been her domain, because she didn't really have one. I don't know why I'm stuttering so much today. She didn't really have one, whereas I think the other diamonds definitely did. But they just hadn't given enough responsibility yet to realize what hers was. So maybe I would have been right eventually, but I definitely wasn't yet about this point.
So now that we've established what Pink Diamond was in charge of before whatever happened to her happened, through Rose, let's discuss the only diamond that we've seen Rose have any kind of interaction with. Not my best segue, but hey, what are you going to do?
Hey, at least it is a segue. At least I used to bother with stuff like that, right?
I think it's because Blue Diamond, at this point, is the only diamond on Earth. Because Blue Diamond is in charge of culture and colonization.
And again, that's not specifically correct. We do know, again, that the diamonds have their own colonies and they show up and they run the moon base. But I still think the sentiment behind this one is correct. I think that initially the diamond who controls the planet shows up, establishes the moon base with either troops that they made elsewhere or troops loaned to them from another diamond, which I think Rose probably had a combination of those, because we do see what looks like a Pink Diamond kindergarten on Homeworld at one point. So she had to have had at least some followers. She didn't just come here herself and start scrapping, or start scrounging together scrap for materials, right? But I feel like, considering Blue Diamond's aesthetic and her attitude, and how she has this whole court full of people chilling with her, even while she's doing the day-to-day business of talking to Sapphire about how the next stage of the war is going to go, or the rebellion is not really in all that war yet, right? I do feel like she was a cultured person. Maybe she wasn't specifically in charge of ensuring that gem culture proliferated all of their planets, but I definitely feel like she was someone who took it upon herself, at the very least, to show up at each new colony, come down to the planet, make sure that there was a flow and a consistent aesthetic to all of the buildings that were constructed, whether they had another function or not, so that high-class gems could spread out and visit these planets and be comfortable and interact comfortably and safely without having to touch the planets themselves, really. Like, I think that's a big reason of why so many of these gem structures are tall and or float, because the gems were kind of, especially the high-class ones, were like hoity-toity above interacting with the meager life forms below, right? And so I do think, like, in terms of the sentiment of it, this one is correct. That without Blue Diamond taking interest in these new colonies, we wouldn't have stuff like statues at the moon spire and stuff, right? And, like, since we know Pink kind of took after her two giant space moms, the various statues of her and her crystal gems and, like, the intricate artistic aesthetic of the temple and stuff, that probably came from Blue Diamond, from her influence. Or else Pink / Rose was just way more into that kind of stuff than we realized, and designed all this stuff herself when she was building the colony. But it definitely feels like work on the colony was still going on as stuff was happening with the war, the rebellion. So, like, somebody else had to have been doing that, right? You would assume. And, like, also, this would put Blue Diamond very squarely in the involved in the colonization process camp. Like, you would assume then, if she goes to all these planets personally, or at the very least has some influence on their design, on the design of the colonies, that would put her in some way in the ballpark of early colonization. And that fits with Lapis carving out kindergartens, a thing that, like, they didn't specifically say kindergartens, but we find out specifically later on that lapis lazulis are meant for terraforming planets, and it seems like they carve big ravines into planets, which would reasonably be used for kindergartens, right? So that means that a Blue Diamond gem, a lapis lazuli, is used to carve out kindergartens. So yeah, Blue Diamond in her court would be right there at the beginning of each colony, directly involved in the process. It would give her plenty of time to have an influence over what kind of culture is brought to each new colony. Yellow Diamond, we already established, is confirmed to be the military of Homeworld, so we don't need to talk about that. So let's just skip to White Diamond, I guess? I don't remember what I said about White Diamond at all, because we knew nothing about White Diamond at this point.
She is the diamond that we actually know the least about.
Yep.
We haven't met any of her followers that we know for sure anyway. And so
It's another theory I really liked for a while, and one that I still think they had planned to make canon for a while and then change their minds. But, you know, I'm just paranoid.
Let's look at the depiction of White Diamond in the Pyramid Temple first. No, not that. That is not White Diamond. The size and the hair are all completely wrong. No, this is White Diamond.
Now, see, I don't think that's correct anymore. I think that's definitely wrong. But I have a completely different opinion of like, I have completely different ideas about what this mural was about now. There's a whole video about that. We'll get to it eventually.
What if these orbs are the worlds within the Gempire
Yeah.
that each diamond has primary control over? Their territory, for lack of a better term, where they can pursue their responsibilities and interests. If that is the case, then what is the larger orb? Well, I think it's Homeworld itself.
Yeah.
Specific.
I didn't feel like I could just use that one detail to support my idea that White Diamond's above everything else. I thought that would be too simple. But, like, that would have been enough, I think, to justify that particular headcanon all on its own. I think looking at the context of the other planets, orbiting them, and then having her holding what seems to be another larger, more important planet in her hands, I think that makes it very clear that is supposed to be Homeworld, and that implies that she is above everything else, that she's the leader of everything. So, if we headcanon that I'm right about Blue Diamond, and I'm certainly going to do that, because I'm me, aside from the Pink Diamond stuff, which again was my bad because I just didn't want to admit they were the same person, I got everything in this video correct. Not to toot my own horn or anything. So let's move on to Steven's astral projection, which I don't remember anything about this video at all. I'll look at a couple of Steven's powers and what they might mean for the series. I think this is the one where I speculate that Steven's going to use his astral projection ability, which is a canon thing that he has, right? We see him use it multiple times to get into the heads of the corrupted gems and help them heal, which is not what happened. And again, while I'm glad the corrupted gems got healed, I definitely think actually working with them one-on-one would have been a better way of dealing with that. And then, like, using the first few times that they did that as a jumping off point to try to find a faster way to help all of them at once or something, right? But it's fine.
First and most prominently, I want to talk about Steven's ability to astral project, which, if you know what that means, it means to send out your consciousness and basically travel around in a non-corporeal form. And we saw this ability as early as Chilitide when he unknowingly astral projected into the mind space of Malachite.
Did I say the episode title right at the time? Chilitide, is that right? I still don't know. I hear it different every time I watch the episode.
I was uncertain whether or not this was one of Malachite's abilities or if it was an ability that Steven possessed. Now we know for sure that it is the latter. I mean that Steven apparently has a very real form of psychic empathy where he can read the emotions of others and literally feel them for himself.
Yeah, it's like you see it in Star Trek in The Next Generation. Marina Sirtis' character, Deanna Troi, has that ability. And depending on the director, it can sometimes be absolutely insufferable.
Seems to go beyond emotions as well, where you can feel the physical pain of others, too. It's another power that we see him use on the cluster. When the cluster is being harmed by the gem drill, he feels it.
And if I had been better at this at the time, I would have pointed out that having him use those two powers in combination, astral projection and actual psychic empathy, to help the cluster, seemed to be setting up that he would use those powers in combination again to help the corrupted gems. Maybe I do. Maybe I do at some point, and I am better at this than I realized. But I don't think I do. But again, I don't remember this video very well, so let's just keep going.
Because I think that it's a variation of this ability that makes Steven so easily able to connect with others. Which is actually what I want to talk about today, is these two abilities and how I feel like Steven might use them going forward in the series.
This is the good old days when I still used clips of Pearl talking to be me, because I didn't really have the hardware to be in front of the camera. But, like, while that is technically transformative, let's talk about fair use for a second. While it is technically transformative, it's probably more than qualifies under the law, using that much footage from a show that I don't technically have to use, which is why I don't do it anymore. And I do kind of miss it. I do kind of miss it, though, because especially back then when I used to work off of more concrete scripts, I talk at kind of a similar pace to what one of these characters would. So it actually fits pretty well. The lip flaps actually fit pretty well with my style of speech. Just pointing that out because I was looking down here at the comments and somebody actually talked about it, which was pretty nice.
And combined with his empathic abilities, he could potentially use this power to project himself into other people's minds to come to understand his enemies better than anyone else possibly could. And there's one other group that I feel this combination of abilities could also benefit. In fact, I think it is this combination of abilities that Steven has been showing recently, his empathy and his astral projection, that is being used to set up for the eventual healing of the corrupted gems.
Okay, so I did actually bring it back around to that. Hey, I was actually always pretty good at this then. I need to start doing theories again. I miss it a lot, actually, right now. I'm riding high from being completely right about all of the diamonds except Pink Diamond. I mean, even if Steven didn't specifically use that combination of powers to cure the corrupted gems, he at the very least used it to help them. And he did use it to help other harmed gems throughout the show. So I'm not super bummed about it. I just feel like they were setting up for the solution to be more difficult than it actually was. And considering that corruption throughout the entire run of the show was meant to be analogous to, like, trauma and mental health issues, right? Specifically, mental health issues caused by trauma. I feel like the solution to it was a little pat. But at the same time, I do like the analogy that once the system was repaired enough that they actually gave a crap about traumatized people, it got better for them. Because that's how it would be in real life, especially in the United States where I live. Please, American politicians, start caring about people, please. I'm literally begging you. But yeah, I'm going to stop this one here. The rest of this video just talks about that and why I think it's going to be a thing. Yeah, okay. So, again, this was more a discussion than anything else. I was discussing Steven's powers and what function they might have aside from what we'd seen. But technically, we had already seen him do this kind of stuff in the show anyway. Good videos, I think. Those two, I think I did a good job with these. I don't revisit this period in my video making process very often. I've got it through my head that these were just really, really bad and crappy speculative videos that I threw together with practically no preparation. That's just not true. I'm just really hard on my old stuff. I need to start going back and revisiting my old stuff again. Because, I mean, and that's what I'm doing here. But, like, it gives me ideas. It gives me ideas for stuff. Like, I actually have an idea. I don't know if I'm going to follow up on it. But I made a note of it. I'm not going to tell you what it is in case I do. I have an idea for a discussion video now that I might put together about the show again. After all this time. From watching these videos. So, that, I mean, you know. I guess the moral of this video, guys, the lesson to take away, the message of the week is don't be afraid to go back and revisit your past. There's always something you can learn from it. Anyway, what did you guys think of the theories presented in this video? Are any of these your favorite of mine? What do you think about the fact that I was completely right about all of the diamonds except for the one that I was in literal denial about? Let's get a discussion going in the comments section down below. And while you're down there, you might as well like the video, share it with anyone else you think would enjoy my content, subscribe if you haven't. You can also check out links to my various social medias as well as the many ways you can help out the channel. Those will be in the video description, but either way, this has been AJ22 and I will talk to you guys later.